Hello, my name is Forrest and welcome back to TempestClan. First off, I really wanted to say thank you to all who left such kind comments on my last video. I really wasn't expecting such a warm reaction. And I also wanted to say the style I used on my last video really isn't the one I prefer, so this time I went with my normal rendering style and I hope you all don't mind. But without further ado, let me tell you about Year 2. At the end of Year 1, we left off with Floodstar having just declared war against Clan. After moons of fighting, the war came to a head when the leader of Clan, Pinestar, launched a nighttime invasion of the TempestClan camp, hoping to take the robust TempestClan warriors by surprise rather than having another drawn-out battle. However, the cat on guard happened to be able to hear the loud Clan warriors as they did not know how to move silently across the sandy beach. Her warning woke the clan just in time as the camp erupted into battle. As confusion began to mix with the blood spilling across the sand in the darkness, Oddspeckle was confronted by the Clan warrior she took as a mate, Smoke Whisper, the father of her kids, who had publicly shamed her as if he hadn't committed the same crime. Spurned on by the love of her kits and her clan, she attacked Smoke Whisper, whom had always underestimated her ability due to her size, and killed him. The battle stopped as the Clan warriors looked on in shock at Oddspeckle, who stood emotionlessly over the dead warrior who she once believed to have loved. Stating any queen would do what she did to protect her kits, Oddspeckle was joined by her clanmates, who warned Pinestar if she did not surrender and agree to peace now, more Clan lives would be lost. TempestClan had won the war, expanding their territory into former Clan land, and Oddspeckle threatened if any Clan warrior ever told her kits of their origins, she would reunite them with Smoke Whisper. It was definitely quite the start to the year for TempestClan, and I remembered the proper allegiance order this time. Floodstar had a year that kept coming at him without a single break. After the war with Clan had ended, he had to say goodbye to his former apprentice Bleaktuft. While he wasn't the closest to Bleaktuft, as other mentors tended to be with their former apprentices, saying goodbye to the young Tom that he had trained was hard, and he pulled back from some of his clanmates. Thankfully though, after some time alone with his feelings, he started to get back to his normal self. Over the course of the year, he also invited several outsiders into TempestClan, a choice that wasn't the most well received by the other clans, and rumors began to spread about Floodstar's soft heart for kitty pets and strays. These rumors hurt him very deeply and made him worry that he might not be as respected as he hoped to be, and he's not aware at all of who started them. Later in the year, during a routine beach patrol to check tide levels, Floodstar witnessed one of his clanmates abducted by Two Legs and felt utterly powerless to help. A bit of light in his year was that he and Cloverwhisker officially became mates. They don't share this outside of TempestClan because of how the other clans might perceive some favoritism in Floodstar's pick as deputy. However, the end of the year was not kind to him. On a patrol, he split off from the rest of the group to track a stray scent and got caught up in a flash flood that ripped him away. Floodstar was found on a bank with a broken back, and the clan was left unaware if the incident resulted in him losing a life or not. He's determined to get back on his feet, and the clan is doing their best to make sure he knows that they all are there for him, especially Cloverwhisker, who just wants him to rest and is more than capable of taking over duties as an acting leader for the time being. Thankfully, Cloverwhisker had a less eventful year. He trained a new apprentice in Shadepaw, later Shade Song, and saw her graduate. He's expecting great things from her, though after his relationship with his first apprentice soured slightly, Clover Whisker was a much tougher mentor this time around and was less forgiving for mistakes and repeated offenses. And, like stated before, he became mates with Floodstar, though it seems like Floodstar is a lot more interested in Clover Whisker than Clover Whisker is interested in Floodstar. And Cobalt Fur has been suspicious of him for a bit, that he may have only agreed to be mates with Floodstar to further his own agenda. But on a lighter note, with Clover Whisker acting as interim leader until Floodstar is recovered, TempestClan is really excited to see how their deputy does with the full weight of the clan on his shoulders. The Medicine Den. TempestClan had some interesting developments the past year in the Medicine Den. Egretfleck's health took a bit of a downward spiral after Bleaktuff passed away, and he seemed to forget that the young Tom had joined StarClan, and would often ask his clanmates where he had gotten off to, scolding him that he needed to be practicing his poultices if he was ever gonna make it as a medicine cat. After this, along with his grief, when he did remember Bleaktuff's fate, Floodstar gently suggested to all the warriors and apprentices that Egretfleck have company while out gathering herbs to make sure the old medicine cat was safe. He has actually been getting along with his clanmates much better this year, and that's partially due to the arrival of a second set of paws in the Medicine Den, helping with his anxieties. Slate Dusk was formerly a medicine cat in a distant clan who was let go for unknown reasons, as he puts it. He was invited to the clan by the excitable new member, Gobi, later Guppyclaw, who let him know that if she could find a place in the clan, he certainly could. He joined near the end of the year, right as a bout of sickness swept through the camp, which resulted in several deaths of clanmates that some cats thought would have been preventable. But perhaps StarClan had just called for the clanmates they lost, and their grief was simply making them point paws. It will be interesting to see how this all develops, and I have some knowledge of future years and some theories on Slate Dusk. Rounding off the cats in power, TempestClan got its first mediator this year in Newtstrike. After being saved from an off-leash dog chasing her, Newtstrike was determined to become as fierce and brave as the warriors who had saved her. Except she had a small issue. While she could be plenty fierce and could learn the skills needed to hunt and fight, Newtstrike had been declawed by former owners and later abandoned. She could still hunt with a partner, of course, but Floodstar deemed it too dangerous for a warrior to be unable to use her claws in battle. Newtstrike thought she'd never have a place in the clan, until a border dispute broke out between FloatClan and TempestClan at a gathering she was attending, and she proved herself to be quite adept at being a voice of reason and guiding the arguing leaders to a non-violent conclusion. She was of course later scolded by the senior warriors for speaking when she hadn't been called on to during the gathering, but Floodstar believed that she had proven herself in a skill that many warriors lacked, and promoted her to mediator. Newtstrike took to it like a fish takes to water, and had already been able to ease the tensions between LionClan and TempestClan that remained from the war. She's proud that she's able to serve her clan, even if the way that she does is a little different than what she was expecting. Also unexpected was drawing the attention of a certain young warrior, and she finds herself tongue-tied more often than not around Shadesong, despite speaking being most of her job. I'm sure that she's gonna do really good in the future, and I'm really excited to get to see her bond with more of her clanmates, given a little more time in there. Our favorite bullying senior warrior, Nimblewhisker, got herself an apprentice this year. Floodstar believed that she would do good for Wavepaw and guide him well. Nimblewhisker also believes that she was a fine mentor and held Wavepaw to the standards all warrior apprentices were held to. She saw him graduate and then mourned with the clan after he was lost, and they believed him to surely have joined their ancestors. The two were never really close though, so grief didn't keep her from her duties. Later in the year, Nimblewhisker once again found herself dragged out to sea suddenly, but this time was able to right herself properly and escape the current on her own. Not without damaging her own lungs and putting herself a bit out of commission first, though. The year wrapped up with her being on the receiving end of taunts and rumors when she fell into Cobalt Fur's radar, with her slowing body and her actions making her lose more and more respect of her clanmates. She's been thinking heavily that maybe she is past her prime, and forcing herself to keep going is only making her worse to her clanmates. In a bit of contrast to Nimblewhisker, Rosy Stripe also struggled this year. Floodstar believed that assigning him a new apprentice might help him to heal from the loss of his former one, but in their first month of training he almost lost Flailpaw as well to a speeding monster when the young cat charged to the Thunderpath with little abandon. Rosy Stripe saved him in the nick of time, but his apprentice suffered some head trauma and needed to rest and heal for several moons. The senior warrior felt guilty at the relief that it brought. The relief was short-lived though, when he was injured by a dog and also had to recover in the medicine den. He healed slower than his apprentice and was relieved when Ragged Scratch took over training Flailpaw for him in an informal manner while he rested. He bonded a lot with Egret Fleck during this time, with both of them being some of the original TempestClan cats, and enjoyed his break in the medicine den. While in there, he also ended up bonding quite a bit with Lightning Paw. He found it odd since he had been Lightning Fang's mentor, and most of the clan knew about the young cat's struggle with the weight of her name. But her visits and Egret Fleck's company helped to guide him out of his shell more than he had been since Lightning Fang's death. He regrets not being a better mentor to Flail Frost, but he knows that he'll likely never mentor again. Lightning Fang's loss was too much. He's on the path to healing, with his clanmates supporting him, but ultimately they know he has to choose to take the first steps. And on to the small. Oddspeckle had an eventful beginning to the year, clearly, and enjoyed a few moons of peace that had been brought about after the war with Lion Clan ended. At the beginning of the year, she had a pretty big falling out with Ragged Scratch, and grew much closer to Lady, who her kids saw as practically a second mother. Ragged Scratch and Oddspeckle later reconciled to her relief, and she spent most of the moons this year just spending time with Lady, her former apprentice, or her kids. At least until she received the worst news she could have when Floodstar returned from his patrol shaken and without her kit. She was frantic, and it took moons for her to accept that her son was gone and mourn for him. The happy moments of her year were tainted by the loss of Wave Hollow, and she has been having trouble letting the rest of her kids continue with their normal duties without her presence to keep them safe. I hope she gets some peace of mind and that we get to see a little more good memories for her next year. Velvetfin is one of the kitty pets that was accepted into the clan by Floodstar after Guppyclaw's insistence. Originally named Rudy, she escaped a dangerous house and was struggling to learn the skills needed to survive in the wild on her own, and eventually found herself sick with green cough. After recovering from her sickness, she struggled initially in adapting to clan life, finding the clans rather brutish, but over time, with the help of Cobalt Fur and Oddspeckle, she found pride in her strength and skill and ability to give back to the clan that had taken her in. She hasn't had much time to participate in clan life yet, but the clan is really excited to see her grow. She really didn't get to do much else this year, so this is a bit of a short part, but she really is just a dear and so far has gotten along with pretty much every member of the clan who interacts with her. Lady has been really happy to see the clan growing and had a pretty uneventful beginning of the year, aside from the fact that she was also given an apprentice. She feels only pride in her apprentice, even if they had a rather nasty fight after graduating. She spent most of her time with Oddspeckle, or one of her kits this year, between training her apprentice, and later Newtstrike when the young cat joined, helping her and the other former kitty pets with adjusting to clan life. Near the end of the year, though, she was struggling, as her body felt strained from the work as a warrior. She had adapted to losing her leg well, but the toll it took on her body could still be felt, and she planned on asking Newtstrike if she could possibly consider teaching her to be a mediator, finding irony in asking the cat she had practically mentored to now mentor her. Before she could, however, she fell ill and was quarantined to the medicine den with the other clan cats that had also fallen prey to the sickness that was spreading through the clans. She's been feeling her strength slowly fading and a sense of dread, and she's been getting less and less optimistic about her recovery by the day. Of course, she would never let any of her clanmates know, and she wants to make sure that they don't worry for her while she's recovering. The two gay disaster warriors had an interesting year of growth. Ragged Scratch had a fight with Oddspeckle early in the year after being passed over to mentor one of her kits. She knows that it was ultimately Floodstar's decision in the end, but ended up taking it out on Oddspeckle at the time. She later admitted her mistake and jealousy to her former mentor, who was more than happy to accept her apology. During the time that she and Oddspeckle were on thin ice with each other, she was practically glued to Cobalt Fur's side, as the other she-cat showed a darker side to her clan. She wanted to help her friend, but didn't know how. The grief that Cobalt Fur was feeling was something that she hadn't felt before, and that she felt the other warrior needed to work through on her own. All Ragged Scratch knew how to do was be there for her. It also didn't really help that her affection for her denmate was only growing as she saw these other sides of Cobalt Fur. But outside of that, Ragged Scratch was also consistently getting into arguments with a Float Clan warrior this year, at gatherings and on border patrols, often enough that Clover Whisker had to make sure to assign her to not patrol those borders before she started another war. Later in the year, when it was starting to get cold once more, a fox found its way down to the beach to try and warm itself on the rocks. It was much too close for the camp, however, for the clan's comfort, and Ragged Scratch led a patrol to drive it away. In the fight, however, her tail was mangled, and when it was starting to show signs of infection, Egret Fleck removed it. He couldn't risk losing her the same way Bleak Tuft had died. And before he had passed, Bleak Tuft gifted her with cicada wings. The two spent a lot of time talking about cobalt fur, among other clan things, and they hold a lot of meaning to her as she dearly misses her former denmate. Cobalt Fur had a bad year, to say the least. She lost her mother the past year and had to fight in a war during which she feared constantly for the life of Ragged Scratch as well as the rest of their clanmates. Her only relief was that her brother was safe in the medicine den, except he was supposed to be safe. But StarClan called on him anyway. Her grief shook her to her very core, and she cursed the stars for taking Lark Splash and now Bleak Tuft from her. She vowed to never again look to StarClan for guidance, for thanks. As far as she was concerned, StarClan was no longer there. In her grief, she grew more suspicious of her clanmates, paranoid almost. Had one of them killed Bleak Tuft and made it seem like a natural death? Did one of them lure Lark Splash onto the thunderpath that killed her? In her fear of losing another cat she cared for, she rarely left Ragged Scratch's side. She mocked her clanmates for mistakes and was openly aggressive to Nimble Whisker and Esper. Her suspicions eventually fell to those in power. Clover Whisker didn't seem overjoyed to be mates with Floodstar, and then his accident happened, one that he couldn't clearly remember. Slate Dusk was also untrustworthy. She kept a close eye on him and often found him practicing battle moves and sneaking off rather than collecting herbs. She almost mentioned the behavior to her clanmates when Ragged Scratch was hurt. Cobalt Fur barely left her side, too haunted by the passing of her brother to fathom the warrior she loved dying from the exact same wound, from the dirty fangs of a fox. The one time she did leave Ragged Scratch's side was to hunt down the fox, on her own. In her rage, she chased it off a cliff and found a dark satisfaction in seeing it scattered on the rocks below. Over the course of the year, Oddspeckle's kits grew up, being apprenticed and then earning their warrior names. Lightning Kit became Lightning Paw and struggled in her training. She felt like a failure and like there was the weight of expectation from her clan on her shoulders because of the name she carried. When she graduated, her anxieties only became worse as Floodstar named her Lightning Blaze. Named for her honesty, Lightning Blaze found only more expectation in her name. She now carried both halves of Lightning Fang, his name in life and how he died, in a fiery blaze. She struggled more and more until she woke up one night in a dream, seeing an unfamiliar warrior appear before her, silent and noble, only for a moment before he let loose a flood of apologies and told her that she couldn't keep tearing herself down. Lightning Fang introduced himself, saying he wished he could have reached her much, much earlier. He told her he couldn't care less if she was a great warrior, or even if she decided to abandon the clan. He knew what his fate would be, and would still always choose to save a life. She doesn't have any kind of legacy to live up to. All he wants from her is for her to do what she wants. Lightning Blaze woke up feeling a bit of the weight she'd been feeling in her chest since she could comprehend what Lightning Fang's sacrifice was, being lifted. She also felt lighter being able to give Rosy Stripe a message from his apprentice. A few moons after this visit, Lightning Blaze found herself exploring beyond the boundaries of the clan, and met Hay, a very, very young loner who seemed to still have some of his kitten fluff. She didn't want to force him to do anything, but helped him out from time to time, visiting him as he didn't know anything about Lightning Fang or any of the clan drama going on, and she enjoyed having a young cat around to teach. And these visits continued until Shadesong followed her and met Hay as well. With her sister now involved, Lightning Blaze knew that it could end poorly, and told Shadesong that Hay was interested in clan life, which was true, and that she had invited him to join TempestClan with Floodstar's blessing, which was not as true. At the end of the year, she brought Hay to TempestClan, where he became Hay Paw and her first apprentice. Hay Paw was energetic and enthusiastic. After the pain of the clan losing Wave Hollow, he brought a small light back, especially in Lightning Blaze. He's had very little time to make much of a mark in clan history yet, but he is determined to do the very best he can for his new mentor, having full faith in her. Originally, when his ceremony was occurring, Floodstar had every intention of apprenticing him to Nimblewhisker. Before this could happen, though, Haypaw interrupted. He boldly declared that he only wanted Lightning Blaze as a mentor. Shocking most of the clan for this small cat daring to interrupt their leader, but Floodstar honored his wish, and he is beyond excited to get to train with his close friend and learn all he can. Shadekit grew up the most out of her siblings. Certainly not in stature, but in personality and drive. Earning the warrior name Shadesong in honor of her drive, she was deeply influenced by her mentor Cloverwhisker to be fierce and always ready to defend the warrior code and her clan. She's grown into an ambitious young cat, and while Cloverwhisker's ambition isn't harmful, Shadesong wants to be greater than she is now. The other clans have always looked down on her for her size, and even her own clanmates have as well. But she is determined to show them that the weak-hearted, soft kit and apprentice they remember is no more. She's been dreaming of becoming the new deputy, and finds herself jealous of Lightning Blaze for getting an apprentice first. Though, she takes comfort in knowing that Lightning Blaze isn't the type of cat to desire great things. She loves her clan dearly, but feels an endless need to prove herself, and I can only hope that her ambition doesn't lead her astray. Flailfrost is an interesting little cat. Named in honor of his energy, he grew up to be quite charming, and bitter at his littermates for becoming warriors together before him while he was stuck as a paw in the medicine den. He never really managed to get past that. He feels as if he's had to work twice as hard to get half the attention that his siblings get. His mentor was barely interested in being around him, and he was fairly positive that Ragged Scratch only stepped in to train him as a favor to his mother. He hasn't gotten the same recognition as his littermates or his other clanmates in his mind, and he's determined to be seen. Rivaling his sister Shadesong's dream to be deputy with his own. We can only hope that, like Shadesong, his ambitions don't lead him down a dark path. The last of the Odd Kittens had a very hectic year. Wavepaw assumed that being an apprentice with his littermates was going to be amazing, until Nimblewhisker told him off for asking to train with them and pushed him to the point of failure almost every day. As an apprentice, Wavepaw struggled. He hated Nimblewhisker and never was able to meet her standards that she herself wouldn't even meet. He felt more and more isolated from his littermates and didn't want to worry his mom or lady with his silly problems and pulled himself in. Eventually, he graduated, named Wave Hollow in honor of his reliability, and while on patrol with Floodstar, the two came across a group of two-legs on the beach. They tried to escape, but were cornered, and Wave Hollow was taken. His family was devastated, though he wouldn't know. The stress of everything made him forget most of the journey to the two-leg home, and after 2 months in this house, Wave Hollow began to wonder if this was better for him. Here, Nimblewhisker's and his clan's expectations couldn't find him, but neither could his family. Finding a spark inside of him he never felt, Wave Hollow escaped, finding himself in a strange metal forest, and after going in circles for what felt like days to him, He was taken pity on by an alley kitten and brought before a colony of feral cats who knew of the clan's great migration. Seeing his joy turn into desperation and then despair as he wouldn't know the way if he got turned around, the elder members of the colony suggested a guide. Wave Hollow met Trailing Star, and the two set off for the beaches of Wave Hollow's home. As they traveled, they came across many groups of wildcats, some nomadic, some not, but all with different beliefs. Wave Hollow found himself full of curiosity, and the two traveling cats ended up stopping in different groups from time to time to learn more about them. The journey was long and hard, but the wind carried the faintest scent of his clan on it, and his heart swelled. Now full of a drive and curiosity he never knew he had, Wave Hollow felt himself feeling whole, and with Trailing Star he charged the sea, finally finding himself reunited with his family. Bleaktuft could tell StarClan was coming for him. He'd accepted his fate, but wished he could have stayed for his sister, Egret Fleck, and the clan entrained to become a medicine cat. In StarClan, he's found himself reunited with his mom, and one of his closest friends. They watch over the clan together, and Bleaktuft is fearful for the path Cobalt Fur is padding down, along with being worried for Egret Fleck. Everything going on in the medicine den he shouldn't be facing alone, especially in his condition, and he only wishes that the medicine cat had some kind of connection to StarClan that Bleaktuft would be able to help. He worries, but he has faith in his clanmates. Esper, thankfully though, realized the error in her judgment, and while she didn't fully make up with Oddspeckle, she could respect her, and made up with several of her clanmates for her harsh behavior. Esper was one of the cats killed by the unknown illness that swept through the clans. Guppyclaw was also a casualty of the unknown illness that swept through the clans. Originally a kitty pet named Gobi, Guppyclaw was energetic and had left her home in search of the clans. She had a way to put cats at ease and make them feel respected as she talked. She died so young and so suddenly that one of the StarClan cats took notice. Hermit Paw had been a TempestClan cat, killed during the storm, and up until now had acted as the guide for the spirits of the dead. Seeing Guppyclaw's infectious cheer, even in her own untimely death, Hermit Paw made the decision that TempestClan would do good to be guided by a familiar face, and stepped down, passing his role of guide to Guppyclaw, and rejoining his TempestClan ancestors. And that wraps up year 2 of TempestClan, Electric Boogaloo. I really hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll probably take a small break before doing year 3 if I continue. My wrist is admittedly a bit shot after drawing all these cats. I had a few comments on my last video about my social links. I'll try to put them below, but I wanted to mention on here that I mostly post fantasy and D&D things. But if that still strikes your fancy, then I'd love to have you check it out. And I really hope that there were less audio issues this time. I'm still trying to figure that out, but maybe if I get to part 3, Electric Jamboree, I'll finally have it down. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that these silly cats have brought you some joy as much as they've brought me in the past couple weeks. I'll see you around.